surprise you. I was going to ask a volunteer, but I saw your name up there. I think, this would be great.
Okay. Let me go to Psalms.
Okay. If you end up going to the 18th chapter, I'm going to be truly amazed.
Okay. No. I was going to Psalms 46. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Mm-hmm. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at the break of day.
Hallelujah. Amen. Lord is our refuge and our strength. Amen. 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 Give God a hand praise this morning, saints. Amen. Amen. All over the country. So lastly, we're going to sing this song before. Actually, I do want to do this. I know I don't want to press up against the time too much. I want to sing this song, and then I want to open it before for just a little bit in case anybody has any testimonies, and then we'll turn over to Pastor Darryl. So if everybody can see this song that Brittany put up, this is called "Thank God for the Blood," and it's just a great time to do this. So let's do verses 1, 3, and 4. So and then we'll do our testimonies real quick and give it to Pastor Darryl if anybody has any. Okay. In sin I wandered sore and sad, with bleeding heart and aching head, till Jesus came away. Thank God for the blood. Thank God for the blood. Thank God for the blood that washes white as snow. The water, spirit, and the blood agree. If we but understood in making sinners pure and good, and take their sins away. Thank God for the blood. Thank God for the blood. Thank God for the blood that washes white as snow. How wonderful God's life, how great the love will display when He took on the form of man to take sin away. Thank God for the blood. Thank God for the blood. Thank God for the blood that washes white as snow. Thank you, Jesus. Go ahead, Pastor Darryl. Thank you, Jesus.
Good morning, praise the Lord, everyone.
Praise the Lord.
So I'm going to start today's lesson. And when I sent the lesson out yesterday or last night, as usual, I don't have a subject for it. But this morning, when I got up, there was a subject on mine. And so I put it on the presentation and made a few changes on it this morning. And I think it belongs there. So I don't like to use subjects because I actually like to just go through, as you know, we like to go word by word, verse by verse, and let the word speak to each of us individually. And we may all have different subjects. So you could take my subject if you want to, or get your own, that's fine too. So I'll start today's lesson. Let me share the screen. Okay, someone else is sharing a screen right now, so I can't do it.
Oh, Brittany, you can take him down. Okay, gotcha.
All right. So now I'll share the screen. Oh, by the way, I'm sitting here looking at the screen, and I see the grid of everyone here. Let's see, I see 3, 4, 7 with pictures, 8 with pictures, and a total of 22 participants. And Pastor John and I were talking earlier before class that we'd love to see everybody's face. And so what I thought I would do is that starting next Sunday, we're going to take a screenshot before the lesson, let's say probably 10:35, 10:40, of all the grid. And if your picture's up there, not a picture of you, but if your picture's up there, then it goes into the quarter question thing. So we'll figure out how to award someone who's pictured up there with the quarter question or the quarter, which is a roll of quarters basically. So there's a little prize for you, all right? Is that fair enough?
Yes.
Or maybe I should ask the question. You're eligible for the quarter question. That's what it is. There will be a question asked about the lesson. And only those whose picture's up there will be eligible, right? So 10:35 will take a picture, and then it's like, these people get a question at the end about that lesson, and it'll be about next week's lesson, and then you get to participate. If your name is up there, you get to learn, but you won't get to participate for the quarter, all right? Any disagreements? This lesson. And again, I use the subject today at the end. If you're going through the deck or going through the Word document, I didn't have one on there. But this morning, it was more like keep being the church. And so that's the subject today, keep being the church. Right.
Amen. That's hot, brother.
All right.
He's gonna put it up here. Oh, gotcha. Okay. She's difficult.
All right.
Oh, we on mute. Oh my goodness. I'm clowning with you. We on mute.
All right.
We on mute.
All right. So I changed the introduction as well. So you read the introduction probably, and it didn't change that much. The only difference is that we've gone through chapter 1 through 12 in this letter to the Hebrews. And the thing that struck me this morning as well is that the early church, the first church, the church that was founded in Jerusalem in Acts 2, that church was predominantly Jews. And so we got to remember that the Hebrews, that is the first church. So this first church of Jewish believers, they were being persecuted as well. We saw persecution when we talked in Bible class on Thursday night. So that hasn't changed. But at some point, as we talked about Thursday night, the church was scattered. And so now we got to picture this church that's scattered, being persecuted. And in Hebrews 1 through 12, they get all the teaching and preaching that they need to be stable believers in Christ. And so the writer ended chapter 12, saying that there's some things that be shaken, some things that remain, and what you have is things that are going to be left. So now they're set. And we ended chapter 12 saying now to go serve. So chapter 13 is no longer the teaching and preaching anymore, but it's more of an encouragement. It seems more like a letter now that he's writing, tenderly to the readers about, you know who you are, you got what you need, you're running your race. And so he issues a number of different exhortations that we see in chapter 13. And so when we read it, we got to read it thinking that these are believers who are running their race. These are believers who are being persecuted. These are believers who are sure and certain what they have, and they are solid in their faith with Jesus Christ, but they still got to run and still got to be the church. And so no matter where they go or where they find themselves, what they're enduring at that time, there's no holiday for the church. There's no time to stop being the church. And so the writer says, continue in love, continue in hospitality, continue in fellowship. And so finally then in the day's lesson, I had a boss once, and I think I've said this a few times as well, that always gave feedback at start, stop, and continue. Like he would never come and just hit you over the head and say you blew it. I mean, he would do that, but most of the time he'd come back and say, I need you to stop doing something. Okay, got it. And then you start doing something. Okay, got it. And then he always end on a good note and keep doing this because you're doing that pretty well. So it was always easy. So when I was reading, at least easy to understand exactly what to do next. So as I read this, I thought it kind of aligned somewhat like that. And so as the writer goes through 13, he goes through a number of different exhortations. And we'll try to take the first three today in chapters 1, 2, and 3. And then next week, Lord's will, which I do verses 4, 5, and 6. So go ahead and read ahead chapter 13. And we'll try to go probably 3 verses a Sunday. And I was thinking It'd be great if we could take a year doing it like we did chapter 11, but I don't think it's going to take that long. So we'll probably finish in Hebrews at some point in time, but we'll take our time and go through it. Amen. All right, so we'll go on to verse number 1 now. We'll read verse 1, 2, and 3. Can everyone see the text? Let's all read that together since we all just sang together. Everybody off mute. Let's read together as a class. Amen.
Amen.
Everybody ready? Okay, let's go. Let
brotherly love continue.
Be
Not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some
have entertained
angels unawares.
Remember
them that are in bonds,
bound
with them.
And
Them that suffer adversity,
as being yourselves also in the body.
Amen. Thank y'all for that. Thank you for that. So that's the text for the day. So we'll have basically 3 slides, one for each one of these verses. And if you have background noise, you can mute for a while. But otherwise, please stay unmuted and jump in with any questions or comments you may have as we go through. All right. So, and I'm going to start with continue because the writer starts with continue, and which is just the opposite of the way my boss used to do it. And he says, let brotherly love continue. And now the question is, what is brotherly love? Now, if you look at the definitions on the left side, you see the definitions in the Greek definition there. And the word in the Greek, what we call Philadelphia, I think it's Philadelphia, Phia. It says love which Christians cherish for each other as brethren. And this is important because when we hear Philadelphia, we think, oh, it's brotherly love, and we think it's love like a brother. But there's a prerequisite for brotherly love in order for something to be called brotherly love. So look at the definition and tell me, if your mic's off, what has to take place first before some love could be brotherly love? Anybody know?
Need to be a Christian.
Need to be a Christian. Amen. Thank you, Minister Talk. So you can't have brotherly love unless you're a Christian first. So when the writer says, let brotherly love continue, he's not just talking about any kind of love that someone else could get, or I love you like a brother. He's saying there's a special love among Christians that must take place. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of love. That's not what we're talking about today, but we're talking specifically about the love between Christian brethren. We were all born of the same spirit. So if they're a child of God and I am a child of God, then they are my brother, and there's a special bond, a special type of love between them. And we have to understand that it's not like what the world says. Oh, it's a brotherly love, love you like a brother. And we need to be careful of that because, the world will take a lot of Christian words and hijack them and not know what they mean. Like if I said, what does Philadelphia mean? No one knows. Probably 9 out of 10 people would not say it's love between Christians. They say, oh, love between brothers. No, it's love between Christian brothers. So stop hijacking our words and using them the wrong way. We see that, I know I've talked before about grace, and we see grace, it's a Christian word, just unmerited favor of God, period. Just a wonderful word. You deserve to die. Not only do you not die, he that you live eternally, give you eternal life. Well, that's grace. And you did nothing for it. And then we see the world hijack grace and says, you have a grace period. Oh, really? Yeah, I have a bill due and you gave me a grace period. That means you're going to pay all my debts like Christ did at Calvary. Then you're going to give me something I didn't have, like money, which I was late anyway, the way he gave me eternal life. No, I'm just giving you an extra 10 days to pay you. So that means grace is not grace. You can't call grace grace. You just gave me, deferred judgment. So we can't let the world take our words and twist them, and we think that's the definition. Brotherly love is a special love among Christians, among believers. And so when the writer says, let brotherly love continue, this is what they already have as believers between themselves. And it's important now that you don't stop loving your brothers as you love them as believers while you're going through whatever you're going through. And so the writer knows they have it because a few years ago, we read Hebrews 6, and I have it on the screen there. It says, for God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which ye have showed toward his name, in that ye have ministered to the saints and do minister. So the believers were already ministering and serving each other and taking care of their needs. That's the brotherly love they already had. So it's not something new to start. We just make sure that you continue doing that. And why is it important to continue? We'll answer that question in a second, but you may have read some of the questions already. But it is important to continue because it goes someplace. But the writer says, don't stop doing that. Well, he said stop. He said, continue doing that. Just continue to do what you've been doing and loving his brothers. Now, next slide here. Okay, so love is not on holiday. I know I've heard a song like that back in the 70s about love's holiday, but love is not on holiday. He says continue. And we've seen this word a few verses ago. We've seen continue before. Did anybody remember where it was? The Greek word, mino. Just nobody read that? Nobody remember seeing this word continue? It was a different word, but the Greek word is still the same. All right. So look at in Hebrews chapter 12. I'm gonna read this last verse, and y'all tell me which word you think may be the same thing as continue. Or you can look over here at the Greek word, and you can tell me. And this word, yet once more, signified the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may minnow. So what's that word you think?
Remain.
Remain. Thank you. So this is one of the things that cannot be shaken. While everything has been shaken, brotherly love has to still continue. So the thing is that, and the writer's saying that because it's easy, we may find it easy to stop brotherly love or stop loving each other as a brother in this case, because we don't see everybody as much. We don't get to love on everybody as much because we don't see everybody after church and hang around in the parking lot or in the fellowship hall and things like that. But there's still a certain type of love called brotherly love that has to continue even when we're separated, even when we're scattered abroad, even when we're in different places or not talking to each other as we would normally talk face to face. It's still important that whatever is going on in our lives, that the brotherly love must continue. And it's a necessary thing for us to keep at the forefront at this point, because it's easy for us to stop caring as much for our brethren if we're not seeing our brethren as much. Oh, I didn't see your tires were bald, so I would like to do something for you. I didn't see that you were hungry. I didn't see that you've been wearing the same clothes for the last 18 days in a row. I didn't see any of that. So somehow or another, we have to still connect with each other enough to make sure that we continue to love each other the way Christ has ordained for us to love as Christian brothers, and that's brotherly love. Now, according to 2 Peter 2, no, 2 Peter 1, on the left side there, Peter says there are several Christian virtues that must be added to the foundation of faith in Hebrews 11. All right, so my question is going to be, is where does brotherly love go? Where does it lead to as it continues? And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to your virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly love, brotherly kindness, which is the same Greek word, and to brotherly kindness or brotherly love, charity. So what's the next stop after brotherly love? Anybody? Okay. Charity. Okay, so somebody's listening, somebody's reading on, somebody's not on mute. Hey, thank you very much. So charity, and charity, as we know, is agape. So the point is that brotherly love goes someplace. It's not just to sit there. You're on a pathway here. You're growing, you're developing, you're running your race. You get brotherly love. Next stop after brotherly love is agape. It doesn't seem like you just jump to agape and have this type of love. without first going through, brotherly kindness, or the same Greek word here, brotherly love. So let brotherly love continue. Next thing he says, don't stop or stop forgetting. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Now, it's important. Again, all of these are important. All of these exhortations are important. But he says, be not forgetful to entertain strangers. Now, when things are tough, or you're going through some really difficult time, as these Hebrews were going through persecutions, the writer says, hey, don't forget to entertain strangers. Now, in the Greek word, entertain strangers is one word, and it's just hospitality. So it says, as you're going through whatever you're going through, don't forget to be hospitable. Okay, which means you have to still open your doors. I mean, the doors of the church, and you're the church, and the doors of the church got to stay open. So as long as you're being hospitable, then the church doors are open. So be not forgetful to entertain strangers. Now, who are the strangers? Okay, we look up strangers in the Greek. Strangers, xenos, means it's foreigners. Okay, so not just somebody you don't know. Somebody who's traveling through some place that they haven't been, they don't belong there. So in Hebrews 11, we have strangers, and Hebrews 11:13, these all died in the faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off and persuaded of them and embraced them and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Okay, so if I look at it that way, the writer's not saying just open your door to everybody who come by and be hospitable to everybody that comes by. There's a lot of scripture for that on how to be show good to people, especially those of the household of faith, or to love your brothers but love everyone else as well. Get the gospel to everyone. The writer here is talking specifically, in my understanding at least, about the church, because the strangers, if they are foreigners or pilgrims or moving around, the church was under persecution at this time. So the writer says, don't forget that there'll be some people coming by who may not live there because they live in Jerusalem, but now they're where you are because they're being persecuted and they've been moved around from place to place. You have to constantly remember that your brethren may be coming to you, and they are a stranger when they come to you. They're a brother, but they're also now foreigners now because they're moving. They're nomads at this point. So we have to remember that. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't show hospitality to everybody, but you have to know by the leading of the Lord who are you supposed to be hospitable to at this point. So don't say, well, my door's going to open for everybody to come by. No, you can't do that. That doesn't make sense. He's not saying that. He says, don't forget to entertain strangers. Some of these strangers are the ones you really need to have in your life, because the next thing he says in the second clause, let me get into the second clause. In the second clause, the writer says that thereby some have entertained angels unawares. So now look at entertain means just basically receive as a guest. Angels, and the Greek word is messenger, one who is sent, a messenger from God. And then unawares is hidden from you secretly without knowing. So if I look at this, it says like that God can send someone to you and you don't know who they really are, but God can send a message to you. And some people have received someone as a guest, not knowing that it was actually sent from God. So what the writer is saying, that God could use other people or strangers who come to your house and you think you're being just nice, but in that nicety, God is delivering something to you. He sent someone to you in the form of a stranger, in the form of a guest to you. And if you're always rejecting them, you could possibly be rejecting what God has sent to you. Any questions or comments on that? I mean, it's not really talking necessarily about angels with wings and things like that come to your house and you don't know it, all of a sudden they disappear out of your living room. You know, I've heard a lot of those kind of stories about things, and I believe a lot of that. I'm not saying it's not possible, but the main thing here is that God can send someone to you and deliver something to you, like a word or something, that you need to continue in this tough time. So make sure you're open to what the will of God is for you to receive guests that you don't know who they are. And then the last one is remember them that are in bonds as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity as being yourselves also in the body. So remember, be mindful, recall the one's mind in bonds, just prisoner bound, and suffer adversity, to treat ill. No surprises there on those words. So my question on this one was, why do you think he says, remember them that are in bonds and those that suffer adversity? But in verse 2, he said, don't forget. Anybody see any differences between those two? Nobody? All the same? Synonymous?
I would think that it would be different, a little different, because when he's saying remember, it's something that you're going to have to do. Because when you remember something, to me, it's active. Remember and go do. Remember somebody. Remember me. Pray for me. Remember, in that kind of an example, I would think it would be a little different.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? And I agree with you, Ms. Harper, because when I read it, I say remember is more active. I got to go do something. Remember says recall to one mind. So it's more work. I got to remember to do this. This is what I have to do. If I say don't forget, it's like it is more passive, but just don't let it fall off the drift out of your mind altogether, because you're gonna have to come up at some point in time. So there's some things that we haven't forgotten, but we just don't remember them. Right? I was thinking yesterday, I can remember my first grade teacher's name. Just because I was thinking about this passage, I said, I remember her, Miss Rivers, but I don't remember that all the time. I just haven't forgotten it, but I don't bring it to mind on a regular basis. So when we say remember, you have to constantly recall to one's mind. If someone's driving a car, I say, remember to put your seatbelt on, because every time you get in the car, remember to put your seatbelt on. It's a constant thing you must actively always do. But I also might say, don't forget to change your oil. I don't think about that every day, but at some point in time, just don't let that drift away too far. So sounds like to me, and the way I read this is that remembering those in bonds and those who suffer adversity, this is a constant thing, because at this point, the Hebrews were being persecuted. Some were in prison and some were not. Some were suffering great deals of adversity in trouble and trial and persecution, and some were not. So there was always this opportunity to remember them, because they were always in that case. So when we say don't forget, that every now and then someone may show up that you extend hospitality to. So when it does, just recall it to mind at that point in time. But on a regular daily basis, we must remember them that are in bonds, remember them that are suffering adversity. So like even today, no one may come to my house today or your house today for you to extend hospitality today. But today, you can remember someone who are in bond or going through adversity, because we do know there are some people that are going through right now. So it's important for us to ever keep on our mind those who are going through something far more difficult than us. And how do we do that? He says, as being yourselves also in the body, or bound as being bound with him. Let me get to the questions here. This is something that they've done already. So in Hebrews 10, let's see what this looks like. So there was a commendation that the writer made to these same Hebrews in Hebrews 10. He said, but call to remembrance the former days, in which after ye were illuminated, ye endured a great fight of afflictions, partly whilst you were made a gazing stock, both by reproaches and afflictions, and partly while you became companions of them that were so used. For you had compassion of me in my bonds, and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods, knowing in yourselves that ye have in heaven a better and enduring substance. So the companion is what they did. They became companions of them that were so used. They became companions of those who were suffering reproach. They became companions of those who were being bound. They became companions of those who were being persecuted. And what does companion mean in the Greek on the left side? To partner, to share. Fellowship. Is that what you call fellowship? I mean, when someone says, let's go fellowship, what does that mean? What do you normally think about? Just somebody just tell you what's going on in your mind. Hey, we're having a fellowship. Tell me what's going on in the fellowship. Come on, one green. Hanging out. Give me something else. What else?
Spending time with people.
Spending time with each other. What else? There's a fellowship.
Eating.
Eating. What else? Okay. Right. So if we say, hey, there's a fellowship over here. What else?
I said greens and cornbread.
Greens and cornbread. That's a great fellowship. I know when I have fellowship, we're gonna have a good time. Because we're gonna have some greens and cornbread, we're gonna eat, we're gonna hang out, we're gonna enjoy each other. That's fellowship. We are coming together as fellowshipping, whatever we call it. Hey, sweet fellowship is what we call it. Yes, great. So, but companions here, they were companions in suffering. I'm gonna act like I gotta go through with you. I gotta be bound jointly with you. I gotta suffer adversity just like you. I am now fellowshipping. So when we look at as with them, in verse 3, as being yourselves also with them suffering, and then companions. I already answered the question, right? It's fellowship. So whatever you do next, that's what it's called, fellowship, because you just now, people say I'm in someone else's shoes. Well, kind of. You're actually in the shoes with them. You're experiencing the same thing with them as they're going through it. So whatever you do, you're doing it as if you were experiencing with them. Some people call it sympathy. Some people call it empathy. Whatever it is, it's fellowship, because now I'm fellowshipping with my brothers. So whatever's going on in our lives today, that's some of our brothers who are worse off than us. But how do you fellowship with them? Now, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 12, he says that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it. And one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. Okay, so fellowship is not always, you answering the question, is fellowship, does it always taste good? No, it can, because it's when all honor, but most of the time, as we saw in the book of Hebrews, and their experience, fellowship meant joining with someone who was going through a tough stretch, worse than yours, as if you were going through it with them, and you actually are going through it with them, and you're being bound with them. So the writer is saying here, he says, although you are scattered and disjointed and on the run and being persecuted as believers, you know who you are now. You're solidly on Christ's foundation. You are a believer. You're running your race, and you're going to win as long as you stay with Christ. Don't leave. And now, since you got that, continue being the church. Keep loving. Keep having hospitality, and keep fellowshipping with those of your brethren who are a lot worse off than you. So we got to really take it to that next level of fellowship. We got the love thing down. Keep doing it. We can be hospitality to our brothers. Let's do that. And remember those who are not doing as well as we are, especially in this season right now. Can I go through this with you? Can I experience that with you? Because if I experience that with you and go through that with you, I'm going to do something a little differently than what I've been doing. I'm going to become your companion. We're going to get through this thing. And so right now, we don't know what's going to happen next to any of us or what's going on, but we need to stay in tune with our brothers. When we stay in tune and fellowship with each other, we keep being the church. So let's do it. Let's do it. And remember, it doesn't mean just what's on my mind. You do something as a result of that. So we're called to mind. Now action is fellowship, love, and hospitality. Amen. That is today's lesson.
Amen. Awesome, Pastor Darryl. Darryl, now, Pastor Darryl, before you take that slide away, leave that slide up there.
Okay.
The last slide. I just want to ask you a question now. According to your notes, you supposed to be leading us into what a fellowship? Are you robbing us?
Oh, no. I want somebody to take that and just sing it.
Your notes say start with a Pastor. It looks like you're supposed to be leading Pastor Darryl.
Oh, no. I think it'd be great to do, though.
You told us not to shirk back.
But I don't want to run everybody off now. I think it'd be great for Robin.
Okay.
I think Robin would be great at this.
All right. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. I'm just looking at your notes, reading them to you. So, okay. All right.
All right. What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What
a blessedness, what a peace everlasting arms.
All right. Amen.
All right, get on the way.
All right. Y'all, is it recording? We have heard Pastor Darryl launch his solo career.
All right.
Hey, awesome.
Dropping the CD later. Amen.
All right. Keep that on the recording. Keep that on the recording.
You bet not, Brittany.
I thank God again for what a wonderful lesson today. I thank God for seeing all of y'all. And those of you who want to remain hidden, y'all can remain hidden. You know, we see names there, so we know you. Not everybody's camera ready this early in the morning.
Hey, Cynthia.
So y'all.
I think to remind everybody, we have some new people joined since we started. So next Sunday, Lord's will, as we started, we said at the beginning of the lesson, we're going to take a screenshot, the grid of everyone's who signed in next Sunday morning at around 10:35, 10:40 at the latest. And then those whose pictures are up will be eligible for the quarter question at the end of the class. Next Sunday, we plan on taking Hebrews 13, 4, 5, and 6. And there'll be a quarter question, which is basically a roll of quarters. And for those of you who don't know, when Mom was teaching us when we were little kids, at the end of Sunday school, she always had a quarter question, a little difficult question, tricky question. And those who got it, got a quarter. And so we started a while back having a quarter question every now and then, except for now it's drawn into a roll of quarters. So we'll have a question at the end next Sunday, but only those whose pictures are up at 10:35 or 10:40 will be eligible to answer the question. Amen. Hold me to it. Amen. All right, that's fine.
All right, and then for those who want to remain,
When Ivor's saying something.
What's saying that? So, but for those who want the money, the $10, then you can show a picture. Amen. And if I get my $10, you know, I'm gonna give it away to somebody who's, you know, who did show the picture. So if I win the question, we just want you on board, and we know you're out there. Like Pastor Darryl and Pastor Johnson, it's a blessing to see everybody, but sometimes people not ready to be seen every Sunday. Amen. We understand. All right. Does anybody have any testimonies or things they want to share?
I just want, this is Mr. Bridget. I just want to ask everybody to keep my family in prayer. We did lose